Hello and welcome, everybody. My name is Tommy Gilmore with Noisy Bird Digital Marketing, and you are watching another episode of Wingin It. If this is your first time here, every week I talk to a different business owner, learn from their expertise, learn from their failures, and ultimately the goal is to help you feel like you're winging it just a little bit less. Today, I'm really excited, guys. We're talking with Chris Penney from Penney Construction out of Kanab, Utah. Chris, thanks so much for joining the podcast today. Thanks for your time. I'm really excited to chat.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for having me. This is exciting.
So, Chris, today we're going to chat about learning from failures. We're going to learn about, the mindset shifts that happen, how to overcome hard things. And we're going to put that through the lens of, you're going to be vulnerable with us, which I appreciate. We're going to talk a little bit about your past, things that you've overcome, and really dive into that mindset that it took to get from where you were to where you are now. So, tell people a little bit about your business, how you got started, and then let's jump right into the background of who you were and who you are now.
Perfect. So we're a general contractor. We literally started out mowing lawns. Shortly after we started doing landscape installations, and it just gradually morphed into, well, we're already a general contractor. I have the experience. Let's start doing remodels and building houses. And now here we are, going on 6 years in business, and I think we're on the right path.
That's awesome. That's really exciting. Yeah, I know in those beginning phases when you're just pushing the mower all the time, it probably felt like, man, what am I doing with my life? And now here you are, we were just talking, you guys are going to be bidding a school, you're bidding some of these big projects and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a big part of our success is that I've always loved every aspect of what I do. Like, from mowing lawns and pulling weeds and taking care of that type of stuff. Like, I always took so much pride in everything that we did, and it made me happy. Like, I can't explain. It just was something about getting up every day and having the pride to get in and do stuff for yourself and help people, like, solve their problems. And it was always that, because I came from a background where everyone in my family had either owned a construction company or ran construction companies for someone else. And so I had a lot of that experience, but in little bits and pieces, you know what I mean? And so when it kind of finally came down to it, it was like, hey, I'm mowing someone's lawn. Hey, can you fix this sprinkler? Oh, hey, do you build fences? And then it just snowballed into, all right, now we're bidding on. I remember the first job I bid on it was $28,000. And I was like beside myself. How is this person going to be able to afford to pay me $28,000 to put rocks in their yard? You know what I mean? And we're literally doing a job for that lady today. And that was 5.5 years ago.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's crazy to see the growth. It's nice to be able to look back, and I love what you're talking about, where you said that you for lack of better terms, I'm putting a little bit of words in your mouth, but you attacked those things that other people might not have. Like, you tried to enjoy every bit of that work. Do you know who Terry Crews is at all?
Yeah.
So I went and saw him speak about 6 or 7 years ago, when my son was first born. And he was telling his story. He was a college football player. He went on to play in the pros for a little bit. And then when that fell apart, he literally took a janitor job in LA. And that's how he met the Wayans brothers and got on to White Chicks, where he got to sing the Vanessa Carlton song and stuff. But he said that the reason they gave him this goofy role is because he's a janitor. He's sitting there sweeping and he's like, I'm miserable, but I'm not going to let anybody know I'm miserable. He made that shift. He made that decision. And because he just decided to be fun, around these other people, they noticed him, and it ended up getting him that part in that movie, which launched him into, he's not a huge movie star, but he's been in movies and TV and all that stuff. So that mindset shift is huge.
Absolutely, it is. I mean, every day, almost every day on the way to work, like I listen to the song Vacation, like as loud as I can, because I really do feel like 80% of the time, there's definitely days that suck, but that I'm on vacation because I'm doing what I love. Like even the things that I'm like, oh, I need to figure this out today, or I have to run to St. George to go get a bunch of things, but I also need to be in the office working on bids, and I also need to be checking on a job site, and it's still like, even with the stress, I'm always happy. I'm always feel like we're on vacation.
Yeah, I love it. And I love that song. It's
80%,
Vacation by the Dirty
100%
Head.
of the time, 80%.
Hey, you know what? If you're happy 80% of the time, I'd say you're doing better than most people. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let's dive into a little bit about your background. You said that you've got some stuff that happened in your past that you're comfortable sharing. You wanted to talk about it. So,
Yeah.
let's dive into a little bit about your story and how you went from that to the guy that's choosing to wake up every day, listen to a good song and say, hey, 80% of the time, I really love what I'm doing.
Right. So, I think I'm 38 now. I have to ask my oldest daughter how old I am. I can never remember.
Kids
But
keep
when I
track
was,
of it for you, for sure.
she does. When I think I was 22. No, I just turned 21. Um, I I was actually on probation for stealing a car, and I mean, it was a long story. Like, I wasn't like maliciously stealing a car, but no excuses. Like, I definitely took something that wasn't mine without permission while I was intoxicated and went to jail. Um, about a year later, I was arrested for possession of marijuana with intent to distribute, and I went to prison for 18 months. Um, I came from kind of like a, I don't want to say rough background, but I definitely had it a little harder than most people I grew up with. Um, and so, as growing up, that was just the normal life for me, drinking and partying and doing stupid things. And so I went to prison. I did 18 months. I was a high school dropout. When in prison, I graduated high school uh, with like a 3.9 GPA. And when I got out, I still kind of drug my feet. I went to personal training school. I was a personal trainer for 4 years, and that's when I met my wife and everything. But from there, it was kind of wishy-washy. I didn't really. I was jumping from job to job, just trying to be happy outside of being a personal trainer, and then eventually we started having kids, and we moved back home because we'd moved out of state. And once we came back to Kanab, it wasn't very long before it was like, okay, what am I really going to do with my life? And I always said growing up, I'll never get into construction ever. I hated it. I hated it with a passion. Um, and eventually it was just like, you know what, I really don't hate it that much, and I'm actually kind of good at it, so let's give this a shot. And first thing was we started mowing lawns, and that morphed, like I said earlier, it morphed into taking care of all people's yards, and then solving all their problems, and then, hey, while you're here, can you do this, or can you do that? And it's like, well, yeah, I can do anything. Even if I had no clue, I just would say I could do it and figure it out on the fly. Um, and as things go on, I mean, now, like, I went to prison. I'm a felon. I had I had a pretty rough past, but I mean, right now I coach all three of my daughters. I've coached all three of them in Little League. And I'm coaching right now, actually. Um, I'm involved in a lot of community outreach stuff. We do a lot of stuff in our community, and I personally feel like I'm actually a beneficial member of our community at this point. So
Yeah.
um, now here we are running a business that keeps people employed, and people count on us, and people, I'm always amazed. Even now, people trust me. They'll give me codes to their houses. They'll give me keys. They'll, you know what I mean? The passwords to their security systems, all this stuff, and they just give it to me. You know, the trust is unreal, and it's super humbling to be able to come from where I was, 15 years ago or whatever, to where I'm at now, and know that we're doing good things now, not, you know, running amok.
Yeah. I love the phrase that you said. You said, we're being a contributing member of society. We're keeping other people employed. We're, you know, solving their problems. Speak a little bit to like why is that so important to you now? What shift happened from, hey, I'm, 18, 19, 20, I'm doing this dumb stuff. I'm focused on me, myself, and I, having fun, doing dumb stuff, don't really care about my impact. Like, what do you feel like shifted for you and changed to where now you're like, hey, it's not just all about me. It's about my family. It's about coaching. It's about employing people. It's about taking care of my clients, continuing to earn their trust. Like, how does that shift happen mentally or like inside of you? Because, you know, people might get nervous hearing, hey, here's this felon running a business and people are handing him security codes. Like,
Right.
what shift happened for you to be like, no, this is why this happened and this is why it's important?
Well, I think a lot of it was kind of gradual, because I mean, obviously, I never had ill intent in my heart, but I still was doing stupid things. Not, I was negatively affecting a lot of people's lives, like, just constantly. And it was, I mean, a lot of it was probably shame. To be honest, I probably should be in therapy more often. But, um, at some point, I realized that I'm the only person that can change the way that I feel by changing the way I think. And that was a huge shift in my mentality, and blaming other people for the way that my life was going, or the way that I felt, or the way anything, and just knowing the fact that no matter who or what happens, if somebody says something nasty to me, I get to decide how I react to that, and that's going to dictate how I feel. You know what I mean? And that was the biggest change that really started changing who I was, like, fundamentally as a person, you know. Um and then, as I was living that life, and as a personal trainer, I get out and I start interacting with my community, and a lot of people from my past, like my middle school principal, who I'd literally been in a fist fight with. um he was like super excited to see me, and really like proud of what I was doing after I'd got out already. And that, those, not just him, but those type of interactions, like, filled my heart with, like, okay, like, if I keep doing good, people are going to do and see it. And then the selfishness of that, keeps growing. And then you start seeing, when you do good for people, then you see that same growth in their heart, and then it just kind of compounds.
Yeah, I love that. I like especially that you said that it's a gradual process. I think so many times in movies or like in stories, whatever, it's like, oh, like I got this flash of inspiration and suddenly like I'm this changed person, and I don't think it really happens that way in the real world. You
I don't
know?
think so either.
Yeah, I think it happens gradually over time as you, like, hey, I did a good thing. I got, got out of prison. I got I learned some stuff in prison. All right, I'm gonna go get my personal training license. All right, I'm helping somebody now. All right, I have this experience with my principal. All right, I had this new experience now. And you're just growing, and those small everyday things are compounding and changing.
Right. Yeah, I mean exactly like you said. I mean it's not, the real world is so much different. And we sometimes we expect it to be, and we're so, especially my generation, or at least I can only speak for myself, but I was always so entitled to be like, oh well, I deserve this and I deserve that. And then when I got past the, like, when I realized that I was the one that created how I feel, it also changed my expectations from the world. Like, I didn't expect anything from anybody, and I never do. Um, which, I mean, sometimes as an employer, I do, and then we always have to check ourselves. You know what I mean? As employers, and realize, okay, I'm the owner. I care about my business a certain way. I cannot expect my employees to care about it the same way. But I mean, that's another subject. Um,
Yeah, no, I like what you're saying though about, like, sometimes I think we get that entitlement, and that's something I realized too about 5 years ago. That's why I started my business. Was I'd heard the phrase "nobody's coming to save you," and
right,
I got to live through that in my life when um my wife decided to go back to school. I'm making $20 an hour working for the state, and our transmission on our car goes out. And we had this chunk of money. It was about $5,000 saved up to get us through my wife finishing school for 2 years. And suddenly, $4,300 out the window to fix this stupid transmission. So I've got $700 to my name. We're living paycheck to paycheck. We're having our third child, and I'm just sitting here like, nobody else is going to fix this for me. There's no other job that's going to fix it. There's no other anything. And
right,
so I had to start my business. I had no other choice, because otherwise it was like, my kids are going to sit here on food stamps. That was the
right,
other option. And not that there's anything wrong with that. Like, there's been other times, even in business, that we needed assistance. Things didn't go our way. We had some down months or whatever. There's no shame in that. But I was going to do something about it. I was going to do something for myself that changed the situation.
absolutely.
And
And
so I think that that's kind of what you're speaking to, is that, like, you're focused on the inputs, you're focused on that internal part, and what things can I control and do about it.
absolutely, and that, what you said about, how you got into business was essentially the same for me. Like, at the time, I was working a bunch of odd jobs, and it was barely adding up. My wife was honestly carrying us, with, because she was managing a restaurant and also serving, so she was making good money relative to our world at the time. And one day it was like, you know what? Like, something's got to give. Something has got to give. If I don't get out there and do something, it's just going to stay like this for the rest of our lives, and I want to give my kids something better than I ever had. And now here we are.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that for both of us, the change was obviously our kids, and for other people, it doesn't have to be that. But, like, you have to find that reason, find that thing that's pushing you, and then figure out, okay, like, what what do I actually want for myself, for my family, for, like, whatever that is. Because I think a lot of times we just get caught floating. It's
Right.
easy nowadays. We kind of numb ourselves to the reality of things because there's so many distractions.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So it's easy to lose sight of, all right, what am I actually driving the car for? What direction am I steering? And then you put all the gas into the tank to do that thing, and you don't lose sight of it from there. But
Yeah. Well, that's also easy to do. I could I could tell you for sure the first 2 years, year and a half at least, were like I would self-sabotage constantly. It was like things are going good. I just made more money than I ever could have imagined, and then I would do something stupid just to mess it up. Not in like I didn't realize it at the time, but I know now that I was definitely self-sabotaging. It was like I didn't deserve to have this happiness and this kind of success. And uh, eventually, once I realized it, I stopped doing it at least as bad.
yeah, yeah. I think that that's natural for us as people. I think we get that imposter syndrome where we say, hey, I'm not worthy of this. Who am I to, talk somebody into doing a $28,000 job with me? And who am I to do a $28,000 job?
Absolutely.
And so we start to
Absolutely.
sabotage, and because of that self-talk and stuff like that.
Right. That was one of my big turning points as well in business. Was my dad was uh he was a foreman for a few big companies, or bigger than I am now at least. Um or my stepdad was. And he's retired now, but I call him all the time to help me like go over plans and stuff, and like just give me advice. And when we were bidding on our first house, the what he told me was, Chris, you belong here. You deserve this. You've earned it. It's okay. You're not an imposter. And that was like that was a huge thing for me, because I really didn't feel like I should have been bidding on. The house we just finished was uh all said and done, it was about 600,000. Our side of it was about 400, but I didn't feel like I deserved to be there. Like, who the hell am I to be putting these people's lives in my hand, essentially. And when he said that, it was like, okay, I can do this.
Yeah, that's awesome. So have you put together any, like, you hear about people talking about their mantras or their, how you talk to yourself or anything like that. Do you do any of that? Does that help you at all? Have you learned anything about how you talk to yourself, or what kinds of things you say to yourself?
Um, Not so much mantras, but anytime I catch myself saying like you're a dumbass or you're stupid, I always back, try to back that up, because our brains are already so mean to ourselves, to us. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need to be beating myself up anymore. So, I mean, I do always try to talk myself up in my own head, or if I'm alone to myself.
Yeah, I do the same thing. The one that I stole this from Ed Milet, but he talks about a time in his life where he didn't feel like he was worthy, and then he just looked at himself in the mirror and he said, "I'm built for this." And like every time I say it, it just gives me like this chill up my spine. Like even saying it to myself now, like I caught myself in my
Gave
camera.
me goosebumps.
Yeah, like it does. To
Yeah,
look at yourself and say, "I'm built for this." Like you feel like a badass. You really do. You're like, no, like whatever this thing is, whether it's business, whether it's sickness, whether it's like whatever that thing is in your life, like tell yourself, God put me here. He built me for this, or the universe, or whatever your beliefs are, right? Like
right,
you are here. You're here by some grand design beyond yourself. And so there's like the cells in your body were designed to overcome this moment.
right.
And
Yeah,
like that's what I rely on. That's what I keep telling myself when it, like, scaling a business is not easy. Growth is not easy. Being a dad is not easy, but I tell myself, like, I'm built for it. This is what I do. This is who I am. And like you said, it gets harder for that imposter syndrome to set in when you're like, no, I'm walking that back. I'm changing my personal identity and who and how I view myself.
right. I absolutely agree. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I've loved the conversation so far. I don't want to take up too much of your time. You've been very open, very, very vulnerable, but one of the last questions I do like to ask is just about the best piece of business advice that you've ever been given. You know, it sounds like you've turned to your dad a couple times. This can be a mentor like your dad. This can be in a book or a podcast or anything like that. But I also want to hear like how you implemented it, how it helped your business, things like that.
I think that the best, I don't necessarily know that it was advice, but the best advice that I could give is just do it. Like, if you know you can do it, like in your heart, you feel like you can do this, just do it. Like, stop telling people you're going to do it. Stop talking it up. Just do it. There's no other way. You're going to fail gracefully, learn from it, and continue. Just do it again. You know what I mean? It's the only way. If you're thinking about starting a business, stop thinking and just do it. You're never going to be ready ever. And that's what's up. I mean, the reason my wife was carrying us for so long is because I was like a failed preneur, or however you say. You know, I tried to start so many businesses, and it was just like always months of planning and designing and creating this perfect setup, and none of it ever prepared me for what it's really like to run a business. If you think you got what it takes, just do it and you'll find out.
Yeah. Yep. In the words of the ancient Greek philosopher Nike Corporation, just do it, right?
That's right. Just do it.
No, I love that. And I resonate with that. You know, I remember, so I launched my business in 2022, and before COVID had even started, so we're talking 2.5 years, I looked into what does it take to get a drone license, because that's how I started my business. I was doing drone photography and videography. And, you know, it took me that amount of time to finally, you know, flash forward at the end of 2021, and that's when our car goes out, and that's what pushed me. You know, within 2 months I had my license, filed the LLC, and I had my first job in hand.
Right.
And that's all it took. You know, it didn't take this massive amount of sitting and thinking, but I think you know, again, back to how I was talking to myself, it was, oh, I couldn't do that. I'm too dumb. I couldn't pass that test. I don't know how to do it. I don't even know where to start. All those things. But like you said, you just figure it out. You attack it, you go for it, and that's where it starts to come together. But until you take those first few steps into the darkness, the light doesn't come on. It really doesn't. You have to take those steps into the darkness.
Absolutely. To be honest, that's how I felt about this podcast, and that's why I called you, or I reached out in the first place, because I was terrified. You know, like knowing that other people are going to be watching it and watching me stutter and try to figure it out and ramble and like, is terrifying. But I knew that if I didn't, I just needed to face the hard things and just keep going, because I feel like I've already gained something just talking to you, and I hope that, you know, that translates into helping other people as well.
I know it will. I think this was a really good conversation. You know, it wasn't our traditional here's something to implement in your business, but I think it's just as important. You know, I think it's something that, especially for us as men, we don't typically talk about how we talk about ourselves. You know, that's not usually we're pumping ourselves up to our buddies or whatever.
My wife doesn't know how I feel ever.
Yeah. But I think, you know, because of that, it's just as important to hear these kinds of conversations where we hear, oh, other people feel this same way. There are other people that beat themselves up, or, you know, feel that way about themselves, but here's what they're doing to respond to it, instead of just constantly feeling that way. Because I know for me, you know, I told myself for a long time, man, I'm a loser. Like, you know, I couldn't provide for my family. And so because of that, I'm a loser. And of course, I'm constantly losing as a result, right? Like if I tell myself, hey, this is my box, I'm in a loser box, I just live in the box. That's it. My mind doesn't find those other opportunities. But the second I started to go to therapy, figure out how to talk to myself differently, and identify those thought patterns that weren't serving me, they were trying to protect me, but they weren't serving me. And when I started to figure that out, that's really where I saw explosions in business. I saw my personal life change. I saw, like, you know, my relationship with my kids, with my wife, those things changed because I felt like I had things to offer to them, where before I didn't really feel that way, honestly. So these things are super important.
That's awesome.
So I appreciate you talking about it with me, Chris. And, you know, I'm glad that we were able to have this chat today. For Penney Construction, where can people go to follow along and learn more about what you do there?
You can look us up on social media, Penney Construction, on Facebook, and then you can find us, our landscaping, on TikTok and Instagram, Sandstone Landscape Design. And Penney Construction co.com is our website.
Awesome. I'll put those links down in the description here so people can learn a little bit more.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Chris. Thanks so much for your time. And thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate it. This has been another episode of Winging It. Hopefully you've learned a little something, and now you feel like you're winging it just a little bit less. We'll see you next week.
Appreciate it.